So we just got a major announcement today, and that is that Walgreens is going to be closing a ton of stores across the country. And as you know, Walgreens is one of the most popular drugstore chains throughout the country, and this is yet another sign that the economy is slowing down and weakening. And today I have my mother with me, Kim. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
She actually watches a lot of my videos, so she's pretty familiar with how this goes. So she's gonna help us out here today. According to Walgreens, they didn't actually announce a set number of stores that they're going to be closing. However, the CEO says that they're going to be changing, okay, 25% of their stores roughly. So changing meaning that they might be just closing them down because of underperformance or theft or a lot of the other things that we've talked about here on the channel, because these stores just aren't profitable, and they're going to go through a strategic review and include the closure of significant portion of these underperforming stores. So Walgreens has 8,600 stores nationwide, so 25% of that is at least 2,000 stores that might end up closing. So that is significant. I mean, have you seen any Walgreens close around here, Mom?
No, not yet.
No? I saw only a couple of them, I think, in Rockford that were closed, but you know, most of them still seem to be open, but this is a brand new announcement that just came out today. A lot of people, I'm sure, around here rely on going to Walgreens. I think you pick up prescriptions and stuff from there, right?
I used to. I don't anymore because my insurance changed me to CVS. But,
me too, actually.
So I haven't used Walgreens in a while.
Yeah. So do you use it for anything else?
Not really. Maybe pictures. Sometimes I get pictures developed through Walgreens.
So if it goes out of business around here, you won't care?
Well, I guess not. I mean, I don't really use it that often. I could get pictures made somewhere else, or there's always somewhere to get something done.
Well, I guess bye-bye Walgreens then.
I mean...
So another thing that the CEO said in this announcement is that we're at the point where the pharmacy model is not sustainable, and the challenges in their operating environment require we approach the market differently. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean, but you know, all these CEOs and people in charge, they just kind of say things like this that are just so obscure and abstract that nobody really knows what it means. But I interpret it always as the same thing, is that business is slowing down to the point where it doesn't make sense to keep it open anymore. Now, the one good thing about this is even though a lot of stores will be closed and people will lose the convenience of having that Walgreens in their neighborhood, they are still offering a lot of their employees to transfer jobs, just like the Walmart closures that we talked about the other day. At least they're going to be letting people that work at the current Walgreens that are going to be closed the option to transfer to another store. But then once again, you know, how close is the next Walgreens over? You know, how are they going to be able to make that transfer? Are they going to be able to make that commute? Some people don't have cars, things like that. So it's still an inconvenience for the employees, even if they get the option to keep their jobs. Because of this announcement and what's going on with Walgreens and how much their earnings are going down, their share prices on the stock market actually fell 20%, okay, to its lowest level that we've seen in decades. And think about that for a second. If the share prices are going down to the lowest level we've seen in decades, it's actually much lower, because when you adjust for inflation, then those numbers are actually worse. They just have all kinds of quotes here in this story from the CEO about what's going on with Walgreens. And another thing that he said was, we continue to face a difficult operating environment, including persistent pressures on U.S. consumer and the impact of recent marketplace dynamics, which have eroded pharmacy margins. So once again, this just comes down to people not spending the money. And it could be just like my mom said here, and also with my insurance, they transferred us now. So I get my prescriptions now at Publix in Florida. She gets hers at CVS. I could get mine at CVS too. But long story short, Walgreens isn't getting that business anymore from these insurance companies. We don't know why, but that could be a piece of this puzzle as well.
Me personally, I would rather have stayed at Walgreens instead of being switched to CVS, because Walgreens is actually closer for me. When I have to go to CVS, I got to go like 30 minutes just to get to a CVS to get my prescriptions.
Yeah.
So I wasn't happy about it, but there's nothing I can do.
So that point that you just made, Mom, is also the same for people that are working at these Walgreens. If, say, you're working at this one that's the closest to you, and you have to go to a different Walgreens now because that one closes, they may have to drive an additional 30 minutes to work just to get to the next closest Walgreens.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a problem for people that are still working.
Yeah, it could cost you more money to go to work every day, and is it worth it?
Exactly. So of course the Walgreens CEO is kind of blaming a lot of this on inflation, and of course inflation is to blame, guys. Realistically speaking, people don't have the purchasing power, just like we saw at the mall, all these stores closing, and when people have less money, they have to decide where they're going to spend their money, and it's going to be less at each place they are spending it at. And unfortunately, Walgreens is becoming another one of those victims. That's another quote from the CEO. Shoppers are becoming increasingly selective and price sensitive on their selections. Well, you don't say. I'm sure you are changing some of your shopping habits today with the way prices are, with everything, groceries and utilities and insurance costs, things like that.
I definitely don't eat out as much. We might eat out 2 or 3 times in a month. You know, I cook my meals every day to save money there.
I do the same thing at home, not even just to save money, but also because I just like it better most of the time.
Me too.
And so here's one of the problems that Walgreens is having when it comes to inflation. Okay, their sales rose 2.6% to $36.4 billion for the quarter, but the problem is that number is being outpaced by inflation. So even though their sales went up, it hasn't gone up enough to keep up with inflation, and so therefore the business is still hurting. And that's why you're seeing it reflected in their stock prices coming down. And right now, I already saw a ton of stories when I was researching this one, telling people, oh yeah, you should get in and buy Walgreens stock right now after this huge announcement that they're having trouble. But you know, you're taking a gamble by doing that and hoping that they're going to be able to turn things around. And a lot of businesses probably thought they could. Just look at Red Lobster. You know, these guys just went down recently. You have a lot of restaurants that are closing a lot of locations, and I don't know. I wouldn't be taking that chance right now. So another big problem with Walgreens is that their retail sales have fallen 4% for the quarter. They said that this is also being exacerbated by the cost of living crisis, which has seen customers curtailing the volume of products they buy and shopping around more for the best deals and bargains. So right now, whoever's offering the best deal on what people are wanting to buy or needing to buy, they're going to be getting the business, and whoever isn't is going to be losing it. It's not going to be easy for a place like Walgreens to recover, and then they have to face, you know, a lot of other problems with their stores that are in cities where they don't care, right, where they let them get away with stealing and all this other stuff, and the sales suffer tremendously in those places even more. And they're kind of following the blueprint as a lot of other retailers, and they said that in May they slashed prices on over 1,000 items in their store, and they're doing this why? In hopes of getting people who are being crushed by inflation back into their stores. Everybody's doing this right now. Target's doing it, Walmart's doing it, McDonald's is doing it. When it comes to fast food, you have Wendy's doing it, Burger King. Everybody's doing this now. You know, a couple of years ago, nobody was offering these kind of deals, and now today, everybody is, because business is slowing down that much where they have to do it to try and turn the company around. Are they in danger of going out of business tomorrow? No. But if they keep on this path, then they're going to be in serious financial trouble sooner than later. Now, drugstores in general, besides just Walgreens, are having problems right now because according to a lot of them, like CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, they are having lower reimbursement rates for prescription drugs, and they also have competition from Amazon now because Amazon is in the prescription drug business. At the front end of these drugstores, they sell snacks, they sell household staples, they also are facing competition from the other big retailers like Target and Walmart that are offering better deals on these things. So now you could say that when people run into Walgreens, before somebody might pick up some water and maybe some milk and eggs or different things that they need around the house. But since those things cost so much more because it's like a convenience store, people are opting not to do that anymore. And they're just going in there for the prescription or whatever it is that they came in there for, that one specific item, and they're not shopping the rest of the store. So that's what's hurting places like Walgreens right now. And check this out, if this is not a sign of the times, I don't know what is. Another thing that the CEO of Walgreens mentioned is that prescription volumes are also way down right now because people are not opting to have elective procedures, meaning that people are not going in for surgeries that are unnecessary. You know, if it's something that maybe the insurance doesn't cover or it's too much of an out-of-pocket expense, people are putting that on hold right now. And why would anybody do that, Mom? Tell me.
Well, because your out-of-pocket expenses could be quite large when you do those things. And we've noticed that with my boyfriend, who works in a medical manufacturing facility, he's been very slow lately and they can hardly find work for him. So there's days where he gets sent home because they have no work for him, and he either has to use vacation time or take no pay at all.
Wow.
So, and this is a medical place, you know, that makes medical products.
So it's not even just the prescription drugs, it's the entire medical industry. I think even Sarah's my sister, she was saying last night at dinner that she's had some slow days there too, because she does x-rays, and some days there's just nobody there, right?
Yeah.
And
it's very slow. Like, she has a boring day because, you know, there's not enough to keep her busy all day.
Right. So, I mean, that's just like 3 different anecdotes right there of the medical field showing how things are slowing down. And that's another thing that shows you that people don't have the money to pay for this stuff. And, you know, a lot of times people like to just say, oh, you're just cherry picking data points or whatever. But all this just came across my desk today, so to speak. Like, I never heard of any of this until right now. And even my mom's story about her boyfriend, like, this is all news to me. And it's not hard to find these stories, guys. They are everywhere, of people just not having the money for things like they used to. And if that's one of the reasons that there might be closing over 2,000 Walgreens, that's something serious you have to pay attention to. And by the way, anybody who's wondering, we're walking through Belvedere Park here in Belvedere, Illinois. Nice, beautiful park. Sometimes people ask. The other thing is, it's not just Walgreens, guys. We've actually covered some stories earlier in the year of other businesses that have closed that are similar. Like CVS, they have closed 900 locations over the past couple of years. And Rite Aid, they went into bankruptcy last October and have already closed over 100 of their stores. So these places in general are just not seeing the business like they did before. And it makes me wonder if in the next decade these places are even going to exist anymore. One thing that kind of just rings true with this whole notion of people not having the money for things like this is another study just came out from Bankrate showing that 6 out of 10 Americans, which is 60% of people, are uncomfortable with their emergency savings, meaning that they just don't have enough, really. Kind of like the going rate for emergency savings is supposed to be anywhere between 3 to 6 months of your entire household budget. So if your household budget is $3,000 for the month, then you want to have anywhere between $9,000 and $18,000 as emergency savings. And that's supposed to be money that you just don't touch, okay? It's just extra money you have in case something happens, in case you lose your job, whatever, so you don't have to put it on the credit card. And so now that I just brought that up, Mom, do you think a lot of people that you know and people that you worked with when you were working at the post office and things like that have that kind of money saved up as an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months?
Well, it's hard to say because a lot of people say they have stuff and they don't really have it. You know, I don't really know their financial situation, so, you know, a lot of people will say things to you that want to make themselves look good when it's not really a good situation because they don't want to look bad to other people.
Right.
So it's really hard to say.
I think one of the telltale signs though is like when people kind of like talk a lot about it and want you to think that they're doing well and they have the brand new car or they have stuff that looks like they're doing good. I feel like that's even more of a sign that they're probably lying and it's the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was working at the post office, I saw the same people every day getting like 10 packages a day, not just from the post office, but from UPS, Amazon, and it was the same people every day. It's like, how, I always sat there and wondered, how do you afford this? You know I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, well, we know how people are affording it because, you know, we have record amounts of credit card debt right now, and if these people can get their hands on 5 or 10 different credit cards, you can buy a lot of packages on that, you know, credit before you run out of money.
Yeah, that's true, and you lose sight of how much you're spending doing it that way too, and then before you know it, you're in so much debt you can't get out.
Yeah, and another thing that a lot of people do, then on top of that, is if they're a homeowner, then they will pull money out of their house in the form of a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit and go even deeper into debt to use that to live off of or keep up with the Joneses or whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah, I made that mistake a long time ago, not trying to keep up with the Joneses, but using a home equity loan to do things that I shouldn't have been doing, and you know, I'm not doing that ever again. You learned my lesson.
Yeah, and it probably took you a while to get out of that debt, right?
Yeah, it does. It takes a long time. And I'm finally not debt-free because I still have a car payment and a house payment, but I have no credit card bills, and I'm not doing that again.
And no home equity loans? Or...
No.
Good.
My goal is to pay the house off and not have any more for that.
Yeah, especially because you're retired now, which, you know, one thing I was kind of brainstorming and we're not doing in this video, but maybe let us know in the comments if you want to see us do a video talking about retirement, because my mom just retired at the end of last year. So right now, more than half of Americans, 56%, say they have less than 3 months of expenses saved, and 27% say they have no emergency savings at all, which I would like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not, because you wouldn't be seeing the debt levels on everything, you know, go up to where it is right now at record numbers, and you also wouldn't be seeing the delinquencies on all forms of credit heading up right now either. So these numbers don't really come as a big surprise to me, but I just want to mention it because it reinforces what we keep talking about here on the channel. Despite what a lot of people say that, you know, this is the best economy ever, none of these things would be happening if that were the case. And in fact, I even remember covering several months ago people that don't have emergency savings and things like that, where literally the emergency savings that people have right now are their credit cards. And then the other problem is when people hear this as being like the status quo for emergency savings, you want to have 3 to 6 months in savings. Some people just feel already overwhelmed by that and say, well, why am I even going to start? In fact, when I did my video with Dan the other day, that was something that he said he learned from his uncle. And one thing that a lot of people don't do, they don't save any money because they feel like, well, if I'm dead broke and I have $0 in the bank, then what's the point of saving $50 or $100?
But that's not true. Like, it is hard at first, but if you keep continuing it, you're going to get over that hump at some point, and then you're going to start feeling good about it, and it's going to make you want to do it even more. So you just got to keep it going.
Yeah, it's like a positive reinforcement loop. You see the money growing, and then it's like it makes you want to continue to save more. Yeah,
because it makes you feel good. You're not as stressed out. You know, it just makes your life a whole lot easier.
So I would assume that you have the 3 to 6 months emergency savings too, right, Mom?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I can say I do.
That's good. Makes me happy to hear that. You're listening to what I'm saying here on YouTube.
Well, I was doing that before you started doing this, but yeah, I've learned a lot over the years, and you try to give your kids or other people's kids this advice, but they don't want to listen to you most of the time, you know.
Yeah.
Like we don't know anything, and we've been through it. We know we've made the mistakes, so you should listen to your elders.
Sometimes with a big asterisk there. Now here's the other mistake that people fall into is when people make a lot of money. Say you have you're in a high income household, you and your spouse earn a lot of money. People like that also sometimes don't save because they're like, well, I make so much money that I don't need to save anything, because if I need money, I'll just have plenty of it next month. But that's not accounting for a job loss, a health problem, some sort of an emergency that might come up. And that's still a dangerous trap to fall into, especially if you're a high income earner, if you ask me, because a lot of people that earn a lot of money also have a lot higher expenses than the average person. So even though you make a lot, chances are you probably spend a lot too. And if something happens to your finances where you're not able to make those payments, then you could be just as upside down as somebody who only makes 30 grand a year pretty quickly. So Walgreens is having all these troubles, right? But besides that, we have seen a ton of bankruptcies so far in 2024. In fact, there have been 275 large companies that have declared bankruptcy just as of May this year. So this is not including June, and June's almost over. And this is the highest number of bankruptcies that we've seen since 2010. And if anybody can rewind mentally when that was just after the GFC, when we had the biggest recession since the Great Depression. So the fact that you're seeing this many bankruptcies right now should also be a red alert for people, and for people to start realizing that, hey, things are not going that well. And just because you still have your job or things might be going well for you doesn't mean it's going to remain that way. Look at these people at Walgreens. They're just getting hit with this announcement today. Over the past 14 years, okay, and when we look at this chart here, the blue line on the graph is the amount of bankruptcies up until May of that year, and the entire part of the graph is the total amount of bankruptcies throughout the year. And you can see that 2023 was the largest year since 2010, and 2024 is right up there. And so 2010, there was a total of 827 bankruptcies, and it seems like we're well on our way to getting back to that number, which is just another sign, guys, that, you know, businesses are struggling right now. Otherwise, they wouldn't be filing for bankruptcy. Once again, is that a sign of a strong economy? I mean, you've been alive since the late 60s. You probably never heard of things like this up till now, right?
No, this is probably the worst I've ever seen it in my lifetime, as far as, you know, bankruptcies and stores closing and people losing their jobs. Like, yeah, I've never seen it this bad.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it's like we're not even officially in a recession yet or anything like that, but we're seeing the signs of it everywhere. And I feel like it's going to be just like last time. We're going to see all these people go out of business, all these bankruptcies, and a lot of people lose jobs. And only a year, maybe a year and a half later, that's when the government's finally going to call it a recession once it's way too late.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And that leads me to my last point, that I just want to cover a little bit about real estate here, because I just saw also today that the pending home sales once again fell in May. So the pending home sales dropped 2.1%, and the pending home sales fell in the densely populated South and in the Midwest, which is kind of surprising because the Midwest has been one of these really hot housing markets, and people are seeing, you know, major price appreciation here. I've already covered this about what's happening with some of the listings around here in the Rockford and Belvedere area. Maybe we'll see some future houses for sale here in another video. But a lot of people here think that, oh, if I don't buy a house right now, I'll never be able to afford one because the prices keep going up. Yet right now, the pending home sales here are slowing down, which is a major sign that the uptick is over. And you might still see some year-over-year price appreciation moving forward, but if the sales are slowing down and the inventory starts to come back to normal, well, it's only going to be a matter of time before the market here normalizes as well, and people aren't going to be able to command these crazy prices. And this just goes to show you also how wrong all the economic predictors out there are right now about things, because the economists thought that the sales were going to go up by 2.5%, when instead the pending home sales dropped by 6.6% in May on a year-over-year basis. So not only was their projection wrong because they were in the positive, but it actually went negative 6.6%. So I don't think a lot of these people that make these economic projections really have a clue of what's going on with the economy, because if they did, they wouldn't be so far off. That is like almost a 9-point miss on how wrong they were about where the home sales are right now. And the other interesting thing about this is that mortgage rates have been coming down over the past few weeks. In fact, I think the average 30-year mortgage rate right now is at 6.7 or 6.8%, which, like I said before here on the channel, so what? Okay, when you're looking at today's prices, is having a 7.1% mortgage really going to be that much more expensive than a 6.8%? No, it isn't. The price is what's going to dictate how affordable that house is ultimately, and that's why you're seeing this massive slowdown in the contract signings. And Lawrence Yun, he is the chief economist over at the National Association of Realtors, and I always like reading his quotes to see how far off or on base he is, because he's basically the head and the face of the entire real estate industry. And what he had to say about this is, he says the first half of the year did not meet expectations regarding home sales, but exceeded expectations related to home prices. And he says in the second half of 2024, look for moderately lower mortgage rates, higher home sales, and stabilizing home prices. That's the other thing, guys. I've explained this to you before, that the home prices going up right now is also an illusion. Because of how much the home sales have been coming down, people are just not buying as many houses. The only houses that are being sold are by people that can really afford to buy those houses and pay more for them. But most people are falling behind and not buying houses, and you're not seeing the sales take place on the lower side of the spectrum, which just forces the median home price up, and it makes it look like the market is still rising when in fact the sales volume is going down by a lot. You're seeing this anomaly with retail sales, you're seeing it with restaurant sales, and it kind of gives the illusion that things are going well. But when the actual sales volume is going down, that's a telltale sign that more people are just checking out and not buying a house. I mean, I don't think you would be looking to buy a house right now, right, Mom?
The only way I would is if I had to move for a specific reason, but just to go buy one, no.
And even if you did need to move or you needed to sell that house, you probably would have to look for a cheaper house than what you have right now in order to compensate for the higher mortgage rates, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know if that's possible. Like, there's not a lot of houses in our price range, I feel like, that would be in a good neighborhood. I don't think I would want to live in a bad neighborhood, but there's not a lot out there in our price range anymore.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that because the inventory levels are so low here, like in this area of the Midwest, you know, a lot of people think that the prices will go up forever. But when we're already starting to see the sales volume drop like this, you know, 6.6% year over year, that's a significant drop. And to me, that just means it's going to be a matter of time before you see more people put their house on the market and less people be there to actually buy it in the end.
Yeah, it's hard to predict what's going to happen because, like you've said in the past, you know, if the government keeps doing things to prop up the housing market and help people, it could possibly keep going up. Like, how do we know if it's going to do that? And then we're definitely priced out at people that wanted to buy.
Right.
Now they can't.
Well, one thing that they just announced, how Freddie Mac is going to be guaranteeing second mortgages for people, but it's a pilot program, so it's only going to be, you know, several $billion for now, but that's still stimulus that goes into the economy and helps people borrow more money against their house that otherwise wouldn't be able to thanks to the government.
Yeah.
So,
and that could make things even worse. So I don't know. It's hard to know where it's going to go.
Absolutely.
I wish I could predict the future.
Well, the only way to find out is to keep watching and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you are subscribed. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.